I'm Frances Proctor, otherwise known as Angel Eyes Online. Today I'm going to show you some basic techniques for painting with Xara's new Shape Builder tool while creating this watermelon image. The Shape Builder tool is a feature of Designer Pro X, and you will need Designer Pro X to do this tutorial. However, the good news is you can get a full unrestricted 30-day free trial from Xara.com. As an added bonus, I am making available a free template at talkgraphics.com. The link will be in the video description. The template contains a set of name colors and a pre-made background image to speed things along. So are you ready? Let's get started. Okay, if you've opened up the template Xara file, this is what you'll see. I've got a set of name colors down here that we're going to be using to create the watermelon drawing, and a pre-made background. Now we don't need the background right away, so for the time being I'm just simply going to hide it. The first step in creating our watermelon is to go to the Quick Shape tool. You need to have it set for a starred shape, and we need to have 3 sides. And what I'm going to do is simply hold the Shift key and create a wedge shaped upside down triangle like this. Now I'm going to flip this so we can work with it this side up. This gives us a basic shape for a slice of watermelon, but the corners here are too sharp and the sides are too crisp and clean. So we're going to get the Shape Builder tool and make sure our Quick Shape is selected. And I'm simply going to just paint along the edges, give them a bit of a wobble, that kind of thing. Maybe I'll come up here and we'll kind of round the corners, the tip of the watermelon, and I'll come and go down here a little bit, give it a bit of wobble here and there. Now, one of the great things about the Shape Builder tool and the Eraser tool in Designer Pro X is you can quickly and easily switch between the two. By simply holding down the Shift key, we can make erasures, maybe fill in a bit more with a Shape tool. I think I'm going to go to a smaller nib, and I'm going to just do a bit of smoothing there. Maybe that was too much. Shift, erase. We'll erase some of that out. Maybe we'll fix this up just a bit here. And maybe we'll put some back in. Bring that back down a bit. As you see, we really can switch back and forth quite easily. Now I'm going to round this bottom out just a little bit more. So I'm going to go for a bigger nib. And give it a bit more of a rounded bottom. Bring it over to there. Bring this over to here. Now I'm just going to hold down Shift, select the smaller nib, hold down Shift, and just erase some of the Okay, we'll go with that for now. Now we've got our basic shape. I'm going to just change the color. I'm going to give it one of these pale colors. It really doesn't matter which pale color we use at this point. And I'm going to extrude it. And we'll just kind of flip it up. This is going to give us our basic. Okay, this gives us a guide that we're going to use, and I've turned the beveling right down to 0, and we're going to use this as a guide. And this actually won't be part of the original drawing, but it'll give us a guide to paint over and give us an idea of where we need to place our shadings and where the rind needs to be painted in. So now the next step is I'm going to adjust the lights just to give this a little extra contrast so I can see where the rind is easily, and this side where we need to put in the shading once I've got some semi-transparent shapes over top of this. So now I'm going to go to the selector tool, and I'm just going to rotate this just a little bit. Alright, now my next step here is going to be to clone this. I'm going to go Control K on the keyboard. And as you can see over here in the Page and Layer Gallery, I now have 2 extrusions, one right on top of the other. This top one, the clone that we just made, I'm going to convert to editable shapes. And you'll see down here, it now shows that we've got a photo bitmap selected. Excuse me. So I'm going to go to the Fill tool, and I'm going to change this to a flat fill. I'm going to give it this nice red watermelon color. Now this is going to be the basic shape for our flesh. What I'm going to do now is to select this, and I'm going to clone this, Control K, and I'm going to give this a pale watermelon pink color to begin with. And I'm going to go here to the Fill tool, and I'm going to give this a fractal plasma fill. I'm going to click here in the center of this, and for the other color in this fill, I'm going to use a very pale, I call it watermelon pale pink. And I'm going to click somewhere here, anywhere here, and I'm going to change the fractal scale on this to about 60. And I think I'm just going to pull this in and just make this just a little bit smaller. And now here's the trick to bring out the red tones in the flesh and get that nice fleshy look. I'm going to give this a transparency, a fractal plasma transparency. And I'm going to, again, I'm going to click here and I'm going to adjust these settings. I'm going to bump this one all the way up, and I'm going to change the profile on this one. And I'm going to bring this down a bit, just a bit, not too much. And I'm going to bring this one up a bit just to bring out more of the red. Now we're beginning to look fleshy. Now there's one more layer to this. So I'm going to clone this again, Control K. And this layer I am going to give it, I've got a, I call it barely pink flesh. It's almost a white with just a very hint of pink in it. And I'm going to take this one, and this time I'm going to take the transparency tool, and I'm going to change the profile on this one. I'm going to sharpen this up just a bit more, and I'm going to reduce this way down, so we don't want to see a lot of it, but just enough just to give a little extra depth to the fleshiness. See, if I take it right down, you can see I'm not seeing a whole lot there. I back that off a little bit. Don't want to be too finicky with that. Okay, so now we've got our flesh ready to go. Now, before I start painting in the rest of the shapes, I'm going to select these three items, and I'm going to go Control G and group them, and I'm going to give it about maybe a 60% transparency, because we need to see the extrusion underneath there for now. Okay, make sure nothing is selected. And at this point, I'm going to switch over and use my graphics tablet. This can be done with a mouse and without the pressure sensitivity if you need to. But as I have the tablet, I'm going to take advantage of it. So now the first thing we're going to paint in is the watermelon rind, which is this part in here. So for this, I'm going to zoom in just so I've got a bigger view. And I've got a nice rind green down here. So I'm just going to start painting in this green over here. Now, on the outside edges of the extrusion, we really don't have to worry too much about being exact. And I think I'm going to make the brush just a little bit bigger. This is one time when it's okay to go out of the lines. And I'm just going to go down and around here, and we'll just... This edge along here is where you'll need to be a little bit more careful. But again, we're just using the extrusion basically as a guide, so you don't have to be extremely accurate either. But we do want to keep it fairly smooth. And we'll continue painting along. Bring it all the way over. And we want to bring it up here, and again we want to have it a fairly smooth edge along here. And I'm actually going to use the shift key and actually straighten that a bit. Paint some more here, and again I took out too much. Alright, there we go. Now I'm just going to fill the rest of this in as quickly as I can here. Alright, I seem to be a little bit laggy here because I'm recording as I'm doing this. But you get the idea. Alright, now I'm going to add in some of that colorations that you'll see on a watermelon skin. So make sure our rind is deselected. And I've got another green color here. Soft rind green. And I'm going to select that color. And I'm going to make this nib bigger. And this time I'm going to put on a lot of softness on it, because we really want to kind of blend this in. And I'm just going to start painting in a nice, fairly large, soft color shape here. I'll bring it close to the edge, but not too close. Maybe we'll just bring it down here like so. Alright. You really don't need to be too finicky with this. Now, with this selected, I'm going to go to the transparency tool, and I'm going to give this a fractal plasma transparency, and I'm going to hold down the shift key and adjust this transparency until I get something I like. Now I'm going to use the profile sliders just to give it a little bit more sharpness to them. And that gives you the basic idea. Alright, now the next part we need to paint in is the trance, where the colors go from the transition from the green rind into the pink flesh. There's generally, it starts out fairly green, gets white, and then goes into pink. So to do that, first thing I'm going to do is to make sure nothing is selected. And I'm going to go to my transparency tool. And I'm going to set the transparency, I think around 50% for now. And I'm going to start with what I call pale rind green. It's this kind of bright looking green here. So we'll go to our shape builder tool and let's set this at about that size. And I'll leave the drop. I'll leave these, maybe we'll drop the softness just a bit. And we'll start painting this in. And you'll notice I'm not being too particular over going along the edge of the watermelon rind. You can get it more particular with this if you want. I personally don't really think it needs to be. And we can just start kind of painting in our green color here. Add some more of this green color here because I'm going to be going over it with other colors in a minute. And it is important to go down this edge here as well. Oh, maybe I don't need quite that much, so I'll hit shift and we'll take that out and go back in here. Alright, now the next color I've got is called pale green flesh, which is again a step lighter but still a bit green, so I'm going to start painting in with that. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo that and I'm going to increase the softness on this one. Yeah, that's better. And we'll just kind of paint in with that. And again, we don't need to be hugely particular with it, just to go over it just a little bit here and there. And we'll go down here, down there again. Now I'm going to go up to a soft pink. Undo that. I'm going to go out to a soft pink one here I've got, and I'm just going to start layering that one in. And as you can see, it goes on there nice and soft, and we want the kind of colors kind of blend. And it's really beginning to look like that nice soft pink edge you'll see to the rind part before it gets into the flesh. And again, I'm going to go down here. Make sure nothing is selected. And as a final touch, I'm going to go one more nib bigger, and I'm going to increase the transparency up. And I'm going to take the pale pink, and I'm going to just add in a touch of that pale pink right in there. Like that. And again down the sides. Okay, we're going to add in that shading now. So to do that, I'm going to use, make sure nothing is selected again, and I'm going to use, I've got some really nice dark red tones here, and that's what we're going to use for this shading. I called that one dark shading 3, I think. So again, we want the shape builder, and I'm just going to start by painting in some of this nice dark tone down in here. I'm going to do it fairly lightly, and I'm going to undo that because I think I need to set the transparency again a little higher. There we go. Alright, I'm going to just start following along the extrusion that shows through and start painting in our, and we do need to go over this edge here too. Now I'm going to deselect that, and I've got a bit of another dark color here. Just I'm going to add in some of this at the bottom here where it might be a little darker. Some up here at this edge. Alright, now let's go back and again make this completely visible and have a look. Alright, it's really messy looking at this point, but it is looking like a piece of watermelon. But we do need to do a little bit of fixing up along here. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure nothing is selected. I'm going to go and I'm going to get a color here, the same color we used for the flecking in there. I'm going to use this color, and I'm going to make sure that it is really quite transparent. And I'm going to use a smaller nib for this too. And I'm just going to lightly draw in some highlights just along the edge of the shading here. Just kind of like that. Alright. Now let's tidy up this mess. I'm going to hide the extrusion again because we don't need it. You can even actually delete it out of there if you like. And I'm going to marquee select the whole works, the whole shebang, and I'm going to hit Q to give it a clip view. Alright, now we're getting there. Just going to zoom out just a bit. Now I'm just going to move this up a bit here and adjust my page over. Now we need to add in those seeds. Now first, there's usually a depressed area around the seeds, bit of shadowing, bit of shading around the seeds. So what I'm going to do is I've got this nice deep watermelon red down here. So make sure nothing is selected. Select that, and I'm going to go to my shape builder tool, and let's see. And I'm simply going to just paint in. I'm going to leave the transparency and the softness settings as they are, and I'm simply just going to paint in these areas, and these are where our seeds are going to go. So I'm going to put one in here, and that's really not showing up enough, so let's go in and make sure nothing is selected, and let's drop down that transparency just a bit. And I'm going to maybe make this a bit bigger and increase the softness here. Okay, try this again. There we go. That's showing up better, and that's looking better. So I'm going to put one in here, one around here, one up in here. Maybe we'll have one here that's kind of showing on the side. Maybe another seed up here that's going off the edge of the slice of watermelon. Yeah, I think that's enough. Okay, now the seeds. First off, I'm going to drop down my brush size, and I've got this nice color here. It's called, just simply called dark shading, and I think I had something selected, so let's, and this is a really good color for making making these seeds. So I'm simply just gonna take the softness right down, and I'm going to go back to the transparency here, take the transparency right back down, back to my shape builder tool, and let's just paint a nice watermelon seed shape. That looks pretty good. Now the watermelon seeds, I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger, so for the time being, so we can see better as you're working. Now they aren't always completely jet black. They often have a bit of flecking in them. So I've got this color here, appropriately named Seed Flecks, and as you can see, it's a much lighter shade of color. So make sure nothing is selected. Select our Seed Flecks color, and I'm going to go to my shape builder tool, and I am going to give this one some softness, and I'm just going to brush in some areas where we're going to see the flecking in the seeds, and maybe I'll do one area down here like this. Now we need to make sure both those areas are selected. Shift select to select the second one. Back to our transparency tool, and we're going to give this a fractal plasma transparency again. And again, hold down shift, adjust the flecking, and let's use the profile to sharpen that up a bit. Now I am going to, at this point, I'm going to select the whole seed and Control Q to clip it. Now I'm going to add in just a little bit of a highlighting to give the seeds that wet, glossy look. So with nothing selected, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to use my Barely Pink Flesh again, because this works really well for this. And let's bump up the softness on this stroke and smaller. And let's just go in and just paint in that highlight. Just kind of like that. Alright. Marquee select, Control G to group, and let's make this a little bit smaller. Alright, now we can start placing our seeds onto the watermelon, into the places where we put in the shading. And I'm going to turn that seed, rotate that, turn off the snapping. I can move that around better. Clone it. Move this one over here. Put it on a bit of an angle. We're going to put that one so it's just over the edge. Make another one. This one can go over here. Again, I'm going to rotate that one around. This one up here, I'm going to go like this. And the one that was going to be kind of at the edge, I'm going to go like this. And I'm just going to rotate that one right around and do that like that. All right. Now at the moment, these seeds still look like they are just kerplunked on top of the drawing. So now we're going to fix that with the eraser tool. So let's select our eraser tool. And I'm going to get a smaller nib. And I'm going to set it so that it is quite soft. And I think for this part too, we'll zoom in a bit more here. And I'm simply going to use the eraser tool to erase parts of the seeds to make it look like they're actually stuck into the watermelon. Whoops. One important thing to remember too is that you have to make sure your seed is selected. Otherwise the eraser tool is going to erase everything. There we are. And we'll just erase maybe some of this edge here like that. Bring a bit of it in like that. And now it looks like it's kind of poking out of the flesh, which is kind of what we want. Maybe I'll erase a bit more of that. Now we'll move on to this one. And again, make sure the seed is selected. And I'm not going to worry too much about the parts that are overlapping the edge of the watermelon, because we will clip view that out later. But I will take and make some of this edging around here disappear. Alright, next seed. And now let's have a look at this one over here on the side. I think I'm going to take it out along here, and I'm going to just kind of barely remove some of it out here. Maybe some of this edge too. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to zoom out. We're almost done. And again, I'm going to marquee select this. And I'm going to use clip view to clip it. Alright, now our watermelon is looking pretty good. So let's bring in our background image. And I'm just going to resize the watermelon down. And let's arrange it on the plate. And let's make a copy. Tip that one up a bit more. Maybe move it up. Make another copy, and I think we'll flip that one. Rotate it around. And I'm going to bring it down. Okay, now we're going to just paint in some shading. So to do that, we're going to go back to our shape builder tool. I'm going to give it a fairly large brush here, and we've got an 80% softness, which is good. That's what we want. And let's give that a... Oh, we've got that watermelon selected. Make sure nothing is selected, and adjust this. Still selected. Alright. Make sure nothing is selected, and adjust this transparency. Up, up. And let's start by painting in, and I'm going to use, for this one, I am going to use the dark shading again, the same one I used to create those seeds. So now I'm just going to go in here and start painting in some shading there. Now at this point I'm not worrying too much about it being over top of the this slice of watermelon, because I'm simply going to use my page and layer gallery, and I'm going to drag it down and down one more. And now the shading is showing where we want it to be. So let's do the same thing and put some shading in here. So let's now this time we want this shading to be behind all of the watermelon. Oh, it's attached it to the same shape. Undo. Make sure nothing is selected. And add this kind of shading in here. Bring it over a bit more. And I'm going to bring this down below all of the watermelon. So now I'm going to add the shading in up here. In pretty much the same way. And this one comes down there like that. And we'll add in some more shading under here. Like so. Maybe bringing it all the way over like that. And again, this needs to come all the way down. And it was attached again. Undo, undo. And I think I'm actually going to bring this over like that, and it actually I think that looks better, and we'll bring that back down to the bottom. And there you have it. That's how I did it. Nice juicy watermelon. Thanks for watching.